Namaste and welcome to this exciting new episode of Sattology, debunking mythology. Sattology means science of truth or study of truth. Mythology means science of myth, lie, imagination, or fake lie, imagination. Now, today we are talking about when there are functions in the government circles in the US. Generally a Christian pastor is called, an Islamic cleric is called, and the Jewish clerics are called. Hindu clerics are not called. That's one problem. I see a big problem in the American universities and the American academic circles and even the government circles. Now, either don't call anyone or call the most prominent ones. At least the Hindus need to be called wherever it is, wherever these functions are held at the local level. Now, some places Hindus are not there, so that's a different matter altogether. Now, and the second problem is that why do we want to restrict God to our minds? Why we want to do that? Now, Brahma Samhita, now I have a very, very special guest. We'll talk about it. Who is a researcher. I call him Swami also sometimes. I call him a sadhu. He's a Muni, Rishi. And let us welcome Sri Nilesh Oak.
Namaskar, Aditya ji.
This is a very interesting, problem we are having in the US, right? They call all the religions not the Hindus. So, and another thing is we try to define Bhagavan all the time, and now Bhagavan is defined by Parashar Muni as person having 6 opulences in full. All fame, all renunciation, all knowledge, all beauty. Now, this is Parashar Muni's definition. But I come to a very basic single point that, Hindus, first of all, monotheism superior to pantheism or animism, which is they call Hindus as pantheistic or animistic. So why this kind of discrimination according to you? There are many Sanskrit shlokas like Ishvara Parama Krishna Sachidananda Vigraha Nadirani Govinda Sarva Karana Karana. Yeah, please go ahead.
Okay, so few questions, few different points rather. So first, you mentioned in the introduction before, like when there is any occasion or any celebration or any event in America, usually a representative from, say, Judaism, Christianity, or Islam would be there, but not necessarily other philosophical path, dharma, religious traditions. As you said correctly, in some places, the availability could be an issue. That can be easily excused, easily pardoned, right? Then the next one is the people who are organizing it, do they have an awareness of these other traditions? So if they just think as a religious and suddenly within the religion, if they think of like immediately of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, then to them, almost like they're inviting everyone. If we go back, say like 200, 300 years to the beginning of the current the United States of Americas, and not the current United States of Americas, the original 13 states and whatnot, when Ben Franklin and Thomas Jefferson, they were all working together as a deist, many of them were deist. And so they thought of like one God out there. So those are some of the roots that you see, like why one God or emphasis on the one God. It may not always be from the Abrahamic tradition, but their background was from Abrahamic tradition, of course. And so I think that just gets continued into the modern discourse. What was your other point that you asked?
That the concept of God, like first of all, they don't accept that Hindus have one God, the pantheism, monotheism.
Yeah. Right. So, because that in some sense you can say as a mainstream, at least, there are many in America who, because of now internet or even otherwise getting exposed to the thinkers, they're getting exposed to the other world traditions. But you see, if you look at now the social media is a level, creates a level field, because people can, instead of a push, they can use the pull methodology. They can go and search whatever they would like to search. But if you just imagine, before this, it was essentially what? The TV stations, the newspapers, the magazines, and whatever they decide to push to the audience is what these people received. Just a simple example is, suppose somebody here is, say, talking, discussing religion, and you start them, hey, tell me all the religions that you know. Now, these days, the awareness is definitely changing. But usually you will find they will talk of Judaism, Christianity, Islam. Somebody who with a little bit of awareness here and there will add Buddhism. Sometimes they may add Shintoism or something like this. And then they stop in their tracks. It's not their fault, because in the old system, what was pushed to them through newspapers, through TVs and magazines was essentially what? The Abrahamic religions, and then for the diversification, the diversity effort, the Buddhism. So I think those are some. So people who will say Buddhism will not able to, in that line, able to recall Hinduism. That is the challenge. So it is alien to them. Then also, suppose you think of the social interaction, like people going to church. I mean, we'll call predominantly in America, people going to church, right? Of course, there is a small Judaic community, Jewish community, and I don't know what percent Islam is. But even there, what is the discussion? The emphasis is continuously on that one God, that one book, and so on and so forth. So I think even when people may move away from a religious attitude or a specific attachment to a specific religion, still their cultural background or the childhood background is extremely monotheistic. So that's what comes out. And this is what I think.
No, and see, the Hindus generally also misrepresent Sanatana Dharma or Vedic culture in a big time, because if you ask a Hindu, he'll say it's just a way of life.
Yeah. Now, it's not a religion, right? It's not a religion. It's a way of life. They say, oh, thank you very much. I did not know that. Next time I will not say it.
Because Pancharatrika Vidis is a religion, and Upanishads are a religion because the instructions how to live a life. Manusmriti is a religion, if you look at from the lens of Abrahamic faith. Now, Vedas and Swadhyaya, meditation, this becomes a way of life. So it is both a religion as well as a way of life. When you represent like that, and then we ask for our rights as a follower of Hinduism or Sanatana Dharma, Hindutva, whatever you want to call it, then it becomes acceptable to them. And secondly, the concept of pantheism, concept of monotheism has been extensively used to exploit the natives all over the world. It has exploited American natives, which were almost 50 to 100 million people, now reduced to just 5 million. And it has exploited Hindus in India. That's the whole game plan of Islam and Judaism and everyone, that we are monotheistic and you are pantheistic. But a natural born child will be naturally pantheistic because he'll respect sun for the warmth, he'll respect moon for the taste in vegetables, that's Bhagavad Gita says, and he will respect the earth for giving him shelter, and he'll respect a pond of water for giving him water. So pantheism is the way of life. And monotheism is like, if I say I don't need the sun, moon, earth, and I just believe in one, and if I pray he should give me something, if he doesn't give me something, he's not God, that's a business transaction. What do you say?
Well, you said it well. And so again, if we may remove even the word pantheism like a ism, but of course, just like we discussed, if you just discuss Hinduism as a way of life, then, and you say, hey, it's not religion, it's a way of life, then people say, oh, I didn't know that. Okay, next time I will not include it. Similarly, pantheism, you say, well, it's not actually pantheism, like it's not a ism. I would like to say that, but I will, of course, will include and say, yeah, that's right. We should use pantheism versus monotheism. What is, pantheism, if you take it further and say it's a dharma, right? Closer to dharma. What is dharma? Dhruv, what is? I mean, dharma is what is, and that what is, if you start explaining it, like you said, a child who is not brainwashed in any fashion, going to look at sun, and without even knowing why the child feels it that way, is going to enjoy the sunrise. Like you take children to the ocean, like, to the beach, and they start enjoying. They don't know why they like it, but that expands, So like Vibhuti Yoga of Krishna, in 10th chapter, if you go, like, he's describing Stiran, Himalayas, in among the stable things, like it's a Himalaya, right? Stavaranam Himalaya. So you see these great things of nature, and immediately you connect without even knowing why you are liking it. So that is a dharma, what is. Now, as a name for a comparison, we are going to call it pantheism. I'll just give an example, like, say, what you said is correct. Say, take samosa. Most people in America now hopefully will know samosa, right? So somebody says, what is samosa? Oh, is this like, yeah, I ate it one time. It's like a pastry filled with spiced potatoes, That's what's potatoes and peas. That's what somebody will describe it in America, for example. And if you keep on saying, well, no, it's not a pastry, or it's not this, or it's not that, right? Then the person will finally say, well, I tried my best, but you're saying it's not, so maybe I will not include it. It's like a dosa. Oh, is that like a crepes? It says, well, it's not a crepe. It's so yes, you have to. It's okay to recognize the uniqueness of something. Like, say, we'll talk about dharma, but if you are communicating, it's also important to tell people in the language they understand. So it's okay. It's okay, or rather, it is a must that you also say, yeah. So it's my religion is Hindu. If you are saying this, and you say, however, the way the concept of religion or a dharma that is understood in my tradition is not exactly one-on-one. There is no one-on-one superimposition with the Abrahamic traditions. And then so there people know that there is some difference also.
The concept of yam, niyam, pratyahar, all these different, we have 9 processes also. It's not there. Like it's logically, like in my last book, Golden and God, I mentioned that Christianism, Islamism, and Judaism. That's what I focused on. The ism is a very negative connotation, because when they attach ism to anything else, that means it is worth studying, or it is a topic of research not established, something like that. So anyway, we'll go through that, but we'll start with your presentation theme today, which is there, Krishna Yogeshwar.
And the blue god,
So, and the blue god. We'll cover the blue god, because why? Somebody asked me, how can God be blue? The Ghanshyam.
Yeah.
So I replied to him, I never understood why you are colorless. I never understood. So why is color is something better than colorless?
Right.
So that person could not answer, but most of the Indians get defensive on that question.
Yeah. Well, the quick comment, I mean, you did not ask the question, but since we are going to talk about the blue god, it is very interesting. Gurudev Ranade, he was a great philosopher, and he knew, just like, our good second language, like, say, Hindi, or better than our Hindi, I would say. Gurudev Ranade knew English, French, German, Greek, Latin, Sanskrit, and Kannada, and many Marathi, many other languages, Hindi, very fluently. That gave him a unique opportunity. He studied literature in Latin. He studied literature in Greek. He studied literature in English, French, German, of course, the different languages of India in first hand, as a first language speaking kind of individual. What he found very interesting is that when some of these, what can we call, seers, we can say, for example, tradition of Maharashtra, we will take example like, say, Jnaneshwar or Namdev or Eknath or Tukaram. If you go to Greece, you will take some of these, like, say, in Judaism, the Kabbalah tradition, the what you call mystic tradition, mystic portion of Judaism. And you can see that in Christianity partly too, like a Gnostic tradition. when he looked at the and Rumi, likes of Rumi, if, in the context of Islam or that Islamic geographical area I'm talking, like Persia, when he looked at their experiences, this is Adityaji, it's a very fascinating observation that he made. It will be interesting for our audience, and people can explore it. I mean, people can read works of Gurudev Ranade. That at that ultimate mystic experience, like in the dhyana or in the yoga or in a simple language we'll call meditation, the people's experience of that ultimate reality or approximation to that ultimate reality, because at the end of the day, no matter how much we try to explain something, we will not explain it fully. I mean, that is just given. So people's experience, what they find is always in their description, like Jnaneshwara does it, Tukarama does it, but some seers of Greece, they do it. In a Kabbalah tradition, you see it. And he has compiled, I mean, I have his books. He has compiled those. Everywhere the blue color comes.
Everywhere.
Right? In describing it, blue colors, just like your background there, in your studio.
There is the community called Druze community. Druze in Israel. I met some of the leaders stayed at my place a few months back. They told us that their prophets have told them that the god has a dark monsoon cloud color. Ganesha.
There you go. Yeah.
Now, these are the people who have never been to India. It is their vision.
Yes.
Okay? Now, I also researched that why the Christians oppose it, why the Catholics oppose it in the US. The reason is they are trying to control the world of religions. And they want to impose their own mindset, just like a lot of stories they have made up, including Osiris. Osiris was crucified, Osiris was hanged, Osiris came out of the stone cave alive. You will be surprised it exactly matches Jesus' story. But Osiris' story happened in Egypt.
Yeah.
And so the point is they're trying to still prove that he came. And just yesterday, there was a video released by these guys.
Yeah.
And they say that we are still trying to see if Jesus was actually there, because there's a new Bible was found 1500 years old.
The Dead Sea Scrolls you're talking,
yes,
right?
Dead Sea
Scrolls. Yeah.
Where he was said to be not crucified. So the entire whole thing of Christianity is vanishing day by day. So because they are trying to prove their validity, and that's why they are saying everybody else is wrong, only we are right. And the same thing is happening with other Abrahamic faiths also. Go ahead, please.
Well, Joseph Campbell has discussed some of these issues in a very positive light, which is to say, because it's very important, even with Abrahamic religions, that you can find ordinary folks in those traditions, in those religions, who are sincere about it. They may be ignorant. I mean, just like in Hinduism also, you'll find many ignorant people, just like you said, why people will not able to explain Hinduism. I mean, even frankly, you and me will struggle. Sometimes the struggle is because the person who you're trying to explain has a very limited idea of what religion is. And now you're saying, where do I start? Where do I begin? Right? So that's a challenge. But the blue color, what I was referring to is that this, just like you said, a child without any brainwashing will just go to a beach and start enjoy the sunset and whatnot, sunset and sunrise. Similarly, the experiences of a mystics around the world, even when they sought that experience independently through whatever the tradition they belong to, but they were definitely considered heretics in some fashion.
That's right.
That leads them to the blue color.
That's right.
So the blue color is a underlying reality. Why we don't know. Okay, but let's begin with the blue god today. Yogesh, go ahead.
One last point I'll say.
Please.
Yamdutas define dharma as anything which follows the Vedic conclusion of the Veda is dharma, and anything which is against Veda is adharma. Very simply, to Yamraj they define. Okay. And because somebody is asking me this question, so this is what I think. Let's begin.
No,
It's a
correct,
wonderful
correct.
topic.
And that's a good point. Like, which is like people will say, oh, they sometimes in Hinduism, the answers are like round and
So
not
you and I are not
systematic.
saying it is Yamdut saying it to Yamraj.
Correct. Yeah, yeah. And these answers are very crisp. For example, in 13th chapter,
Yeah.
Krishna gives a very clear definition of what is jnana.
Yes.
He makes a list of 20 things. He said, hey, these things are jnana. Anything that is not here is
Yeah.
ajnana. Whatever, if it doesn't fit this definition of 20,
Yes.
you do something, you know something, and it doesn't fit this,
Yeah.
it's ajnana,
Okay.
right? What a beautiful definition. So that's the 13th chapter. But today we will refer a little bit to the 11th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. So quickly to give a very broad timeline, Krishna Charitra. Krishna was born in 5633 BCE and he passed away in the sense of his avatar was over. He decided to wind up his avatar, like as we would consider in a Vaishnava tradition, or people in Vaishnava tradition would understand it, 5525 BCE. So he lived for 108 years. Okay. So again, that 108 is a number that we will hear everywhere. It comes in a multiple ways. Again, as Aditya said, it's kind of the underground reality. I mean, you see these ratios of distance between, say, Earth and a moon to Earth and the sun, and that ratios comes into 108 type of thing. Very similar to this. Could be coincidence, could be Krishna's plan, could be the plan of divinity, whichever way you like to see it. 108 years. So that's what the Krishna's biographical time can be considered as a detail and so on. And if we have to describe it in terms of the key instances, but how it was built, these are some of the instances. So let's look at the three big dots. And I want to go very fast through it because I have talked with Aditya ji about his biography before. So one of the key instance where Krishna is connected and everyone understands is Krishna telling Bhagavad Gita. And the Gita Jayanti is not that far away. It's like less than 10 years and we are going to have a Gita Jayanti. In fact, when actually Gita was told was like a 2 days ago, a day or 2 days ago, which was the day of Kartik Amavasya. That is when Mahabharata war began, 16 October 5561 BC, that is right here. And that is the day Krishna told Bhagavad Gita. However, the way that Bhagavad Gita narration comes to us, of course, through Vasudev, when Vasudev composed Mahabharata, but within the Mahabharata, it's Sanjaya telling Dhritarashtra. So we, in a way, hear Bhagavad Gita, the wisdom of Bhagavad Gita, through the discussion between Dhritarashtra and Sanjay. And that discussion happened 10 plus days after the Mahabharata war began. Because after Bhishma fell down on the 10th day of the war, that is when Sanjaya came running from Kurukshetra to where Dhritarashtra was, Hastinapur or near Hastinapur. And he said, Bhishma fell down. And that's when Dhritarashtra asked, Dharmakshetre, Kurukshetre, Samaveta, Yuyutsava, Mamaka, Pandava, Sheva, Kimakurvata Sanjaya. Sanjaya, tell me, when my sons and the sons of Pandu came together at Kurukshetra, what happened? And he starts narrating. And of course, in that course of discussion or narration, Bhagavad Gita is recited. So actually, by the time Bhagavad Gita was kind of told or discussed by Sanjaya to Dhritarashtra, and then, of course, documented by Vyasa, composed by Vyasa many years after. But that happened on the day of Margashirsha Shukla Ekadashi, and that's why we celebrate that. That will be on the 14th of December this year.
That's right.
Right? Now that 5561 BC, tons of evidence, the astronomy evidence, multidisciplinary evidence. But now we are not talking the Mahabharata war so much. We are talking Krishna's biography. We get three key points. The other key point is the flooding and destruction of Dwarka that is happening 5525 BC. And so we have a tremendous empirical scientific evidence when Krishna's nirvana happened, 5525 BC. We have tremendous empirical scientific evidence for the year of the Mahabharata war. And guess what? We have again tremendous scientific, empirically, objectively testable evidence for the time when Krishna killed Kamsa. Okay, so that comes out to 5622 BC. Now, Harivamsha, Mahabharata, or Bhagavad Purana in this case, tells us that Krishna was 11 years old when he killed Kamsa. So we put all this together, and that's how we get these details of Krishna's life story. Why I'm mentioning Aditya is when people also very casually, carelessly, as like a idle curiosity, sometime in responses to our videos, like in a comment section, they will ask some questions. So please tell me when the Kali Yuga is ending. Oh, please tell me when Krishna did this. They don't realize this is not something like we have an encyclopedia sitting here and you just go there. This is something that needs to be investigated, and it takes decades. It takes sometimes lifetimes of people, sometimes multiple generations. Just like the creation of the critical edition of Mahabharata, it happened over 60 years, multiple generations of researchers. It's the same thing here. So a message for all the dharma folks is, don't just ask idle question and think like you have done some dharmic krutya. No, you might have done some idiotic krutya. Be part of the solution. Like if you have some curiosity, try to work on it. Do some research, do some reading, like as simple as reading of Mahabharata, and see what you find. Document, compile those references, post it, post it on Sattology.com, right? You have anyone can come there and create a area and start posting.
Sattology.org.
ORG, sorry, thank you. Sattology.org, start posting it. Other people may able to use it as a useful information. But let me move on. So this is a quickly how you build historical research and do this. Now, today, what I want to talk about, not what we discussed so far really, although that's very relevant and it's a good segue for what I want to talk about, is why Krishna is called Yogeshwar Krishna. Now, this is such a huge subject that I'm not going to able to cover it, in 15, 20 minutes. But I want to give one illustration of this Yogeshwar Krishna and how rational or how realistic Krishna's own view of himself is. Just like Aditya, as you know, like when people used to praise Rama, that, oh, you are like a Paramatma. And Ram used to kind of take approach saying, no, I'm an ordinary person. Okay, that is the beauty of avatars. That is the beauty of great individuals too, right? You praise them, oh, you're like greatest person. Like people would say that to Einstein, and Einstein said, I know nothing. Right? Only the people who don't know anything. We have these paradoxes described in Upanishad. The person that's what Upanishad says, one who says he knows not. Right? And one who says, I don't know anything, actually he knows. Like we have those kind of statements in Katha Upanishad and all Upanishad. The point, Ishopanishad also says, right? Ishopanishad says the ignorance will destroy you, but it says the knowledge would even destroy you completely. Now, this is said in a very metaphorical fashion, because if person thinks that he or she knows, and if there is no element of samshaya, then person will never know how to question something and therefore learn more, and how to get what we are talking about, say you are growing up, your brainwashing when you are a child, how to get rid of it. One should know that some things are not correct. Just before we began, I quoted Shankaracharya, and it's worth quoting. Shankaracharya says that is the reality. Like ordinary person's life is actually a blend of a truth and not non-truth. He says Satya Anrute, Satya Anruta. Satya is the truth of your Sattology. Anruta is not truth. Satya Anrute Dve Mithuni Krutya, Dve, those two, they work together, they travel together. Mithuni Krutya Vartate Lokayatra. Okay. That is how people's journey begins. So back to the Yogeshwar Krishna. Why Krishna is called Yogeshwar? Again, I'm not saying I'm giving a whole perspective, but one specific illustration from Bhagavad Gita. And this is not new to those people who are a student of Bhagavad Gita, who are teaching Bhagavad Gita, like say Aditya. But this is something, it's there, but unless you analyze in a certain fashion, we may even miss it. I felt I missed it for a long time, but suddenly one time it just came together. In fact, when I was invited to a Bhagavad Gita class, and that happened to be, the discussion on that day happened to be on the 11th chapter, like the Vishwaroop Darshan. And so I was requested to make some comments. And so while I was listening to the main individual, which Aditya ji novels, Jeffrey Armstrong ji, Kavindra Rishi, this came to me. Now, I'm not saying I'm the first one to have this realization. Actually, not at all. Then, when I went back and started looking at different commentaries of Bhagavad Gita, many have said this. So it's not like my original contribution or anything, but it's so beautiful. And back to Aditya ji, the other point that you made, a child, without even knowing, with any brainwashing, can sense the beauty of a sunrise, can sense the importance of a sun and the moon and so on and so forth, and clouds and monsoon and whatnot. Similarly, if we approach Bhagavad Gita with a pure heart and with a discipline of that student, tadvidi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya, upadekshantite jnanam jnaninas tattvadarshina, even Bhagavad Gita by itself starts talking to you. So this is a quick summary of it. What Krishna is saying in Bhagavad Gita 11th chapter is that, I will come to that, the verse in the bottom left-hand corner. But let's begin with what Arjun is saying. So again, just to ground you, everyone who is listening to it, think of Bhagavad Gita, 11th adhyay, 11th chapter, Vishwaroop Darshan. And this is when Arjun begins and saying, just before that is a Vibhuti Yoga. Krishna has explained, like, where can one imagine Paramatma? When can one imagine? Is it just one place? We talked about monotheism, pantheism. Vibhuti Yoga says that same Paramatma Tattva can be experienced, can be felt, can be interacted with everywhere. All the great things that you see around, right? Sthawaranam Himalaya, among the Ganga, river Ganga. Now, do you have to restrict yourself to river Ganga, or does everyone in America needs to go to India to see Ganga? Well, they must go, they ought to go, but you can go to Mississippi and see that beauty. Okay, you can go to River Ohio and see that beauty. Grand Canyon, you can see the beauty. Rockies, you can see the beauty. It doesn't have to be like the Himalayas. Okay, now, because Krishna is telling Arjun, he is using Himalaya, that's what Arjun knows. So similarly, whatever people know in the local context, that knowledge can be used, that knowledge ought to be used to explain the Paramatma Tattva. So here, the first at the top, like Swayam or Atma Pratiti, your own personal experience. So Arjun is asking Krishna, and look, you see that the qualifications of a student. He says, Manyase yadi tat shakyam maya drashtumiti prabho Yogeshwar tato metvam darshaya atma mavyayam. Manase yadi tat shakyam. If you consider if it is possible, he's saying that, hey, I demand to know what is quantum mechanics. So some of the trolls, they're saying, I demand to know. Nilesh is claiming he did something in quantum mechanics. I demand to know what he did, or is he just faking it? Well, in order for them to understand Aditya, they need to know, they need to have a comprehension ability to know what quantum mechanics is, right? Okay. And you know what Niels Bohr said, one of the person who contributed significantly to quantum mechanics. And many people have said that. Richard Feynman has said it, and many others. He said, you study quantum mechanics for however long you want to study. And after that, if you have not gone mad, then you have not understood quantum mechanics. Okay. When I was a student in Canada, and we were four people discussing quantum mechanics or some aspect like duality. One guy, one of my roommate, he said, yeah, what is big deal in that? It's a dual nature of light. So people can simplify it or oversimplify it. Anyways, back to this. So the important word in that line is Yogeshwara. Now, again, going back to what Aditya ji you said, a child will recognize something without even being conscious of it. Arjun is asking Krishna, okay, if it is possible, will you show me that Vibhuti Darshan that you just mentioned, or that, the universal Vishwaroop Darshan, can I see? But look, even very unconsciously you can say, but he's saying this, Yogeshwara tato metvam darshayatmana mavyayam. Okay, will hey Yogeshwara, will you show this to me? So Arjun is calling him Yogeshwara there. Okay, now that is, I think, shlok number 4, verse number 4 of 11th adhyay. Now come to this other corner, Vijnana or Shastra Pratiti, I am saying. Now remember, the Bhagavad Gita in some form coming to us through Sanjaya's narration to Dhritarashtra, and of course, then through Bhagwan Vyasadeva. Now, why I'm calling this Vijnana or Shastra Pratiti? This is, I think, verse 11, where Sanjay is now describing. So then he says, yes, Arjuna asked Krishna if it's possible, he can show the Vishwaroop Darshan. And then that kind Hari, okay, decided to show the Vishwaroop Darshan to Arjun. In that context, he says, Eva Mukta Tato Rajan, Maha Yogeshwaro Hari. Maha Yogeshwaro Hari. That Yogeshwar is very important again. Darshayamasa Parthaya Paramam Rupaishwaram. And so the person, Partha, Arjun, who was desirous to see this, the Maha Yogeshwara Hari, Krishna, showed that description. Showed the Vishwaroop Darshan. Okay. Now the third one, and then we'll bring together. Now, after showing this whole Vishwaroop Darshan, okay, giving the experience of it to Arjuna, and by that blessings, Sanjay also had it, because just after this 11, Sanjay actually starts describing, what Arjun is saying, how beautiful. Now, once that is all done, so if you come to Shlok 47, now after that is done, Arjuna is scared, Arjuna is very happy. He has become joyous, totally fascinated. But now he's also a bit scared, because when you see the whole thing coming together, past, present, and future, but also, there are no these dualities of good and bad. Everything is there. So, there is a description, just like in going to, what is that, third or fourth adhyay, when we go, why Krishna or Avatar comes, Paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya cha dushkrutam dharma samsthapanarthaya sambhavami yuge yuge. In this Vishwaroop Darshan, towards the end of it, Arjun is saying this. Arjun is saying that Vishwarupa form, how it is destroying the miscreants, and how the Siddha Sangha, the realized individuals are doing puja, doing arati and puja to Hari. So that Paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya cha dushkrutam, which is what that has been discussed in the 4th chapter there, is now actually, as a quick shot, like a fast forward, in a movie language, is shown to Arjun. Now, after all this is over, look what Krishna is saying. This is verse 47. He says, Maya prasannena tavarjunedam rupam param darshita atma yogat. Okay, so he has shown this through his yoga, right? Tejo mayam vishwam anantamadyam yanme twadannena na drushta purvam. But that yoga is what the common form I want to see. So Arjun is asking, hey Yogeshwara, it's coming at a unconscious level possibly, but how relevant? Then Sanjay is saying that Maha Yogeshwara showed this to Arjun. And even Krishna himself is validating, like how Prupam Param Darshita Atma Yoga. Now, where this is when we have to, this is a wonderful time to discuss this. And that goes back to, again, your original discussion, why somebody will understand, the realized souls will realize, individuals will understand as a, in their Atma Pratiti, refer to Bhagwan as blue, and then why that blue gets repeated everywhere. Why other people will have a trouble understanding blue. Okay, this is also important, because the form Adityaji, as you know, of course, but the form that is shown, the Vishwaroop Darshan, is not through this ordinary Chakshu. It is not through the Charma Chakshu. Okay, it is not through the regular senses that we use. There is a Charma Chakshu, there is a Yoga Chakshu, you can give many different names, right? There is a Vichara Chakshu. Then there is a, in this case, actually, it is a Divya Chakshu, that is the language that is used, okay, divine, a simple translation, but also a Krupa Chakshu, a Krupa Drishti. This was not possible. Like somebody cannot come. Oh, so just like they come. I mean, in my research work, they come, and I demand to know the evidence for Maya Sabha of Mayasur, made by Mayasur for Pandavas. And I said, have you read Mahabharata? Because you don't even hear the descriptions of Maya Sabha after that instance. Okay, so I mean, we don't know even what happened to Maya Sabha. Actually, there are descriptions. I think this is what Sabha Parva, right? That's why it's called Sabha Parva, by the way, the Dyut and all that. But there it is discussed that Maya Sabha actually could be moved. So it was like you can think of it as a movable museum. Okay, when I worked for corporate, to show all our products, we actually had this we called all our products like the innovations on the wheels, innovations on the wheels, like big 18-wheeler, 2 trucks or so, and they would go different places in America and of course in Europe and other places too. But and so that city you go and you have that museum. Our customers, but people in general can actually come and see the inventions. This is all there. Think of Maya Sabha was like that, and it was movable, and there is a description of that. The point is, you cannot just say, oh, but show me the evidence, archaeological evidence of Maya Sabha. Again, people don't even understand what archaeology is, how archaeology evidence is found, how most of the archaeology evidence is not found. Okay, so they will not able to relate to this. So somebody comes and says, show me Vishwaroop Darshan. You cannot demand it. It's a Krupa Drishti. It's a Divya Drishti that Krishna gave, but it's also a Krupa Drishti, which is to say, it is Krishna's choice whether he wants somebody to see it or not. And we are going to see some descriptions of that. Of course, when he was in Hastinapur on a peace mission, he also showed a Vishwaroop Darshan. But that Vishwaroop Darshan is not same as this Vishwaroop Darshan. But let's go further. So I refer to some different drishti, okay, different sense capabilities. So Charma Chakshu, which is our physical indriya that we talked about, like the eyes and ears and whatnot. Vichara Chakshu. Not many people understand this. The Vichara Chakshu, like when you think of someone or think of something, people will say that's just imagination. Well, it's not. Once you get into the Adhyatmic levels, it is not, it is as real as you seeing with your eyes. And I can say the other side, you can say as fake as what you see with eyes. Excuse me. Excuse me. For example, one time, one of my gurus, Adityaji, he was asked, some student of his asked, they were sitting there in a small room with the old style lantern, and he was writing, and they said, his student asked to the guru, he says, do you believe or are you convinced that Bhagavan exists? Okay, just like this lantern exists in front of us right now. I'm talking about the Charma Chakshu and the Jnana Chakshu and Krupa Chakshu. And my guru responded, and he said, I am very convinced about the existence of Bhagavan. I'm not so sure about the existence of this lantern. Okay, so this is the difference, and this is the evolution of our brain and mind and our buddhi. Is a Charma Chakshu, Vichara Chakshu, Dhyana Chakshu, Krupa Chakshu, Divya Chakshu. These are all the realities, different levels of reality. Yeah, go ahead, please.
You mentioned some very, very good points, and Nilesh, this is one of your best presentations ever for me personally. Because you're logically taking it forward in the Yoga Shakti, this thing. The first question is raised by Dhritarashtra to Sanjay, and the last answer is from Sanjay to Dhritarashtra. In between, the Bhagavad Gita is summarized.
Yes.
So this completes the conversation.
Isn't it amazing?
No?
You are an IT person. My IT knowledge is limited, but it goes back to the engineering Fortran, Fortran language. And we used to call it do loop. Now we call subroutines, or must be a different words now. But the do loop needs to be completed.
Yeah.
And how beautiful it is that in Mahabharata also, sometimes, the Akhyan and Upakhyan begin. And sometimes you say, where is this going on? Even you forget the original subject. But Vyasadeva does not forget.
Doesn't forget.
No, it comes back, loops within loops, the Upakhyan within Upakhyan, but it's always completed, always completed, always completed. So how beautifully you summarize that Dhritarashtra begins, Sanjaya starts the narration, and Sanjaya completes it also.
The
Right?
answer. The
Yeah.
conclusion.
Right.
And the
And then,
second point was
please.
this, and then I'll let you continue.
Yeah, no. This is
Second
good.
is,
Actually, the interaction is better. That's how we learn more than monologues. Go ahead.
Krishna says, Avajananti mama muda manushim tanumashita.
Tanumashri.
Param bhavam ajanantu mama bhutam maheshwara.
Yes.
Very clearly. Now
Yes.
he calls muda to people who says that he
Yeah.
has taken a human manushya form. And this is second one. And the third is very important shloka, tad vidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya. Without pranipatena pariprashnena doesn't arise.
Correct.
So,
Yeah, you will not get it, right? You will not understand it, even if someone gives you on a platter. It's like the person who has some illness and therefore has lost the taste buds. Even if you give the most delicious dish, okay, the person will try it. He may get the calories, he is not going to get the taste, right? It's very simple.
continue.
Yeah. And so these levels, I mean, the Chakshu levels, what we're saying is, the reason I gave an example of my guru having that discussion about the lantern and existence of a Bhagavan is in this context, right? Which is to say, right now we only know Charma Chakshu, most of us. And we trust them, but Vichara Chakshu, we say, well, how can that be so? Or Dhyana Chakshu, or Krupa Chakshu, or Divya Chakshu. When we hear a mystic experience of someone, we say, that's not possible. How stupid. And then you use the word avajananti ma mudha manushim tanumashritam. Again, you call mudha a mudha, the person gets angry. Okay, why? That's why we say truth is bitter and people don't like it. And you may be seeing those, but those trolls on forums and social media. I mean, when you just call them even in a very polite way, you just tell them what they are doing and why it is nonsensical. Immediately they get angry, they get riled up. Well, that is a characteristic of a Muda. So we shouldn't be surprised. So Charma Chakshu, Vichara Chakshu, Dhyana Chakshu, Krupa Chakshu, and Divya Chakshu, but Krupa Chakshu. Like sometimes the Divya Chakshu, one may with his effort may try to go towards it. My point is that is not easy to attain, but yes, with a tapasya, you can get close to that. You can actually get there. But then also one must distinguish between a Krupa Chakshu and a Divya Chakshu. Divya Chakshu sometimes could be with your efforts. Of course, the darshan that Arjuna had here or Sanjay had is with a Divya Chakshu. But how did that Divya Drishti came? To Sanjay, it was given by Vyasadeva, and to Arjun, it is given by Krishna. Okay, now I talked about a few other Vishwaroop Darshan forms, and so I wanted to just quickly mention few. So this is, now again, is this exactly how Arjuna saw it? Of course not. This is our visualization of it. Okay, and the visualization has its own beauty. Now, visualization helps you, but visualization can also hinder your true understanding of it. For example, if you want to know the taste of gulab jamun or samosa or perfect khichdi creation of Aditya ji, one can describe as much as one may like. Somebody might have visited Aditya ji and might say, oh, what a nice, beautiful, tasty khichdi he makes. But he says, please describe it to me because I also make a khichdi. The person may try his best, but actually you have to test it. Similarly, we have to attain this Krupa Drishti. I mean, we hope that we get it so we can see the Vishwaroop Darshan. But what you are showing here what I'm showing you as an illustration is somebody's vision of it based on the description. And here are these descriptions, by the way. Again, another beautiful point, Aditya ji, that I want to mention. So these are that verse was 8, when Sanjaya says about that then Krishna showed the Vishwaroop Darshan. And now Sanjay is describing. So 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 is stated by Sanjay. And he is now describing the Vishwaroop Darshan, what Arjun is saying, and of course, therefore, what Sanjay is also saying. So, how is he saying? Aneka, this Vaktra Nayanam, Aneka Adbhuta Darshanam, Aneka Divya Bharanam, Divya Neko Data Yudham. Remember, you talked about the monotheism and why polytheism, pantheism, whatever people have a problem. Aneka. That same Vishwaroop, same Paramatma is seen with many different manifestations. And somebody's artist's vision of that is looking like this. What Arjuna saw, we just truly don't know. Then another some beautiful thing that Aditya mentioned. Aditya talked about Pancharatriki Vidhi, and you will correct me if I said the word wrong. Then Yama, Niyam, and all those following. Now, see this beautiful. Many people wonder, and many people actually find confusing the Murti Puja in, for example, say in Hinduism. That is the beauty of it here. What you are saying at the top, the verse number 10, is that darshan. So if you go to your puja room and you see all the different murti forms that you would have, okay, deities, different deities, even for same Krishna, you will have multiple, like there may be a Bala Krishna and there may be a Krishna with a flute hymn. There may be another one, Krishna telling Bhagavad Gita to Arjun, or Krishna riding a chariot. You can have many of these, many forms. So that is your murtis there, right? The next one, if you notice, what is this going on? This is now the puja begins. Divya malam baram dharam. So you are offering the vastra. Divya gandhanu lepanam. Okay, just like to the deities we put the gandha, chandan, and whatnot. Sarvashcharya mayam devam anantam vishwato mukham, because this is a Vishwaroop Darshan. Therefore, many these things. Then now, once the puja is kind of over, not completely. Now, what do we do? Now, Aditya ji is a certified pujari too, right? And certified in many things. Now, what you offer? You offer the lamp, right? Now, this is a Vishwaroop Darshan, so small lamp will not do. Divi Surya Sastrasya, okay, Bhaved Yuga Paduttita, Yadibha Sadrushisya. So now the suns, like as if like to that Vishwaroop Darshan, the lamp that we need in the puja has to be like a sun and not just one sun. Surya Sahasra. Okay, that's what is happening. And after that, see something so beautiful. Now, this is the verse number 13. Is why we are doing puja. We may not get this experience every day, but that is the ultimate objective of it. And if you keep on doing it, one day you will get it. That is the whole idea. Like why we are doing push-ups every day and so on. Why we should be doing exercise every day, and why we take shower every day. The verse 13. Tatre kastham jagat krusnam pravi bhaktam anekada. Now, this all beautiful form, including Bhakta, apashya deva devasya sharire pandavastada. How beautiful. This is an experience of Advaita. If you want to think of Advaita, there is a bhakti in Advaita. And Jnaneshwar has said this beautifully. In fact, from Shankaracharya said bhakti is important, but with his emphasis of a jnana, he said once you are a complete jnani, so to say, the bhakti kind of falls off, or as if there is no need for a bhakti. You may do it, but there is no need for it. That was Shankaracharya's position. Jnaneshwara took it further. Jnaneshwar said, although there is no kruti, there is no action per se, but the bhakti remains. In a commentary on a Bhagavad Gita, Jnaneshwar says, Taisi kriya kirana sahe, pari advaiti bhakti ahe, he anubhavachi joge, nohe bola aise. Now, in Advaita, there is actually bhakti, and I'm going to take you one step further. Okay? Taisi kriya kirana sahe pari advaiti bhakti ahe, he anubhavachi joge. Just like the experience of a Vishwaroop Darshan is not yours or mine. It is of Sanjay and Arjun. So they really know what they saw. We are trying to visualize, possibly the artist is trying to visualize what he might have seen. Now, which means something needs to be experienced. That is what Jnaneshwar is saying. Even in Advaita, and he's not saying even in Advaita, he says, even after Advaita, the Kruti may stop, but the Bhakti remains. And this is to be only experience. You cannot just talk about it. Hey, anubhavachi joge nohe bola aise. This is not something to just blabber, saying, Are bhai rata hai, there is Bhakti after that. Just let me quickly come to this last verse here. So quickly summarize. This is the Murti. Think of this in going to your puja room. Now you are doing the puja. Okay, towards the end of it, now you are offering the incense stick and a lamp and so on. Then you want to just close your eyes, or rather keep the eyes open. And you have seen in many Krishna temples there is that Shringar Arti, and now you just are observing the form, the Murti form of Bhagavan. How beautiful is that particular event? So now you are focusing on the Murtis and try to feel one with them, which is now going back to Bhagavad Gita and saying, Mamai Vansho Jiva Loke Jiva Bhuta Sanatana. We are smart, part and parcel, but we are not different in otherwise. Okay, small part and parcel, quantity we are different, quality we are the same. Mamai Vansho Jiva Loke Jiva Bhuta Sanatana. Can you have that experience of one with the Bhagwan? That is that verse 13. And the last one is the outcome, the fruit. Okay, that one we should not desire, because by desiring it may not come, but by Divya Drishti and Krupa Drishti it will come to you. Tatassa Vismaya Vishto Rishta Roma Dhananjaya Pranamya Shirasa Devam Krutanjali Rabhashata. Goosebumps. Okay, romancha khade ho gaye, something like this. That is what we should feel. That is the objective. That is the desired state when we do puja. And that's why we do puja. Now, when we get goosebumps, okay, this is something to be experienced, guys. Somebody else's experience is not going to be useful to you. Okay, not every one of us will get this Krupa Drishti of a Vishwaroop Darshan. And therefore, to bring it to us for everyone, we have this Murti Puja. That's the Murti Puja. Even the whole discussion of Murti Puja is here. Okay, quickly I want to talk about other Vishwaroop. So now I mentioned when Krishna was in Hastinapur, and he also showed Vishwaroop Darshan. But look at this picture. Whoever this artist is, this is from Gita Press Mahabharat translation and Mahabharat book. Look what is happening. When Krishna showed the Vishwaroop Darshan in a Hastinapura court, this is Dhritarashtra here possibly. He is blind. He's blind even with his charma Chakshu. Okay. So Dhritarashtra also only gets to hear it, you can say. Couldn't see it even the time of the Bhagavad Gita also, but even here. Look at those other individuals who have charma Chakshu. Okay, they could not fathom it. They could not see it. It was so scary. And remember, this form is different than what was shown to Arjuna. So both are Vishwaroop Darshan, but these are different flavors, different bhava, different mindsets at that time, the moods. Okay. So this is very scary, that what he showed, because that was the objective. Okay. That was the right objective. It was suited to the mood of that peace mission. Is different than what Krishna showed to Arjuna. We'll look at one more, and there are actually many others. Like he showed it to Narad Muni once, he showed it to Uttanga Muni once, and so on. But now going back to Krishna's childhood days, okay, again the Yogeshwara. Why is Yogeshwara? At any stage he is showing this. So, but he's not showing it all the time. I'm going to come to that in a minute. So when Mother Yashoda tried to look into, Krishna had eaten some dirt, right, soil, and so she goes to remove it, and Krishna is saying, that oneness again with the land and whatnot. So when she opens his mouth to remove the dirt or whatever it is, and what does Yashoda sees? Yashoda sees again a Vishwaroop, okay, Vishwaroop Darshan. But in that Vishwaroop Darshan, we can only imagine, but definitely it is again a different bhava, different mood that is more than likely definitely not similar to what was shown in Hastinapur, and maybe even not similar to what Krishna showed to Arjuna on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, or what he might have shown it to Uttanka Muni, or what he might have shown it to Narada Muni. Because remember, these are different bhava, vichara drishti. Okay, in this case, it is a Vatsalya bhav. So the bhava is changing. Okay, in the case of Hastinapur, it is the enviousness. Okay, it is the anger. The Duryodhana party is actually unhappy that Krishna has gone to the side of Pandavas. Okay, in a long, distant way, they are all related. Now, one more point I want to mention, Aditya ji, and I'll stop. Now what happens? The war is over. Then many days go by, more than 92 days. Okay, actually 98 days, as we know based on evidence. That Bhishma is on the bed of arrows. Then Bhishma passes away. After that, Arjun goes to the northern regions and brings wealth. Okay, some of the hidden wealth also he brings. Then, of course, in the taxes and whatnot, they perform the Ashwamedha Yajna. Ashwamedha Yajna is over, so that's like 1 year is gone by. Parikshit is born, of course, right after Bhishma Nirvan. And now, after the Ashwamedha Yajna is over, Krishna says, it's all done now. Let me go back to Dwarka, because he's not been there for a while now. So when Krishna is leaving, again, this Krishna has spent significant time with Pandavas, and now they are missing, they are getting these withdrawal symptoms. Even Krishna has not left yet. And so somehow like Arjuna wants to drag on, like that happens. If we have relatives or friends who we truly love, we don't want them to go, right? Say, why don't you stay for a couple more days? That's the kind of discussion. And there, Arjun asks Krishna, he says, hey, you know what? I listened to the Bhagavad Gita. Of course, it had an effect on me. Therefore, my moha was gone. Moha was gone, Arjun says at the beginning of 11th chapter. Please read the first verse of 11th chapter. And of course, at the end, when Krishna asks, has your moha gone? Now I told whatever I wanted to tell. Now karishe vachanam tava. And of course, Arjun says, Nashta moha smritir labda tat prasad danmaya achyuta, right? And now I will fight karishe vachanam tava, right? So that is there. But now Arjun says, yes, I listened to that. But there was so much on my mind at that time. The whole war was in front of it. It was a scary scenario. So many things in the mind. So I have forgotten. Can you tell this to me again? And what Krishna says, a Bhagwan, and you can see his humbleness. This is so beautiful. It is there, documented by Bhagwan Vasudev in Mahabharata. Krishna says, hey, that time it was in the, what you call, you are in the zone. I was in the zone. The circumstances lead you to that. In my yoga yukta state, I told you this Bhagavad Gita. And if I have to tell this again, I may not able to tell you with the same vigor. The reason I showed you is like different Vishwaroop Darshan also, right? Aditya ji said, now, this was not planned. Aditya ji said, Nilesh, I liked this, our today's conversation, like the best out of all our conversations. And I don't even keep track of numbers, but possibly what Aditya ji, we had now 75 plus conversations. Very soon we will hit a century. The point is, even Krishna is saying what I did there, what I told you, like such a beautiful synthesis of everything is there in Bhagavad Gita. I will not able to do the repeat performance. That's what Krishna is saying. If you go to Ashwamedhik Parva, I would encourage people to read read Mahabharata for that reason. Okay, how realistic, okay, how rationalistic these discussions are. We don't need to add some artificial layers to it and make it deliberately mysterious and confusing and something like that. Please don't. It's very, very realistic discussion. Even Bhagwan Krishna is saying, I will not able to repeat that performance. Okay. But he says, so param hi brahma kathitam yoga yuktena tanmaya. What I did, I was in my zone, so to say, into this. And in that state, I told you about this Parabrahma. Okay. The whole essence. I will not able to repeat that. So what I will do instead is I will tell you something similar for using past history. Past history meaning history with respect to the Mahabharata. So it is a history not like of last few thousand years. It is a history which is older than 7,500 years. It is a history with respect to the Mahabharata time itself. He says, Itihasam tu vakshami Tasmin Arthe Puratanam. So he is telling another ancient story. And in that point, I think he mentions Uttanka Rishi and so on. And he mentions another Vishwaroop Darshan that he had given to Uttanka and so on and so forth. We are not going to that second part. My point is, even Krishna, Bhagavan Krishna, is humble enough because that is a part of a jnana. Okay? Namrata. amanita. You can find different words for it. Okay. That is, humbleness is a part of a jnana. Just like Aditya ji, you said, Tadvidi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya. Jab tak pranipad, until the pranipad is happening, that humbleness, okay, that ego is not thrashed, ego is not smashed. Even if you want to know something, you will not know it. The ego itself is going to become a barrier for your simple comprehension. Forget about somebody agreeing, disagreeing, accepting, not accepting. You won't even understand. Hey, where comes the question of you agreeing or disagreeing? Where comes the question of you accepting or not accepting? Okay, so just a quick summary. So you may have certain expectation, but ask the question, do you have the qualifications? Like some people, Aditya, I'm sure it happens to you, but some person will say, yeah, I have got 5 minutes. Okay, please explain. Like I heard like you have done some great work in Ramayana, Mahabharata. Please explain to me. I have got 5 minutes. I said, no, I cannot explain to you in 5 minutes. Go read my books. And the person says, oh, so are you saying that I cannot discuss things with you unless I read your books? I said, that's correct. Because you will not understand it. Because the very fact you are asking this really dumb question or dull attitude that tell me everything in 5 minutes, it just won't happen. But it's not even a matter of time, because some person can just understand in 5 minutes. If Krishna touches his conch shell, Krishna ke shankha ka sparsha ho gaya aapke head ko, to without even communication, you will understand it. Shankha sparsha, that is that Divya Drishti, that is that Krupa Drishti. It will happen. But do you have the qualification? So just the expectation. Like there are these trolls who said, please respond, not please. Oh, you should respond to my whatever stupid stuff I have written. I mean, I'm calling that stupid. They don't think, they think it's the wisdom since, the slicing bread kind of thing. This is their invention. So they may have an expectation, but do you have the qualifications? Then it's very important to understand many things needs to come together. Okay. Atma pratiti, that is you have a desire, but also qualifications. Then Shastra pratiti. So when we are trying to explore certain things of our history, just because you have a desire doesn't mean the evidence will always be available. Just because the evidence is available, it's not guaranteed that the evidence may be sufficient to give us the answer that we are looking for. Shastra pratiti. And then finally, what I just described in a simple way, the shankha of a Krishna must touch your head. That is a guru pratiti, daivi pratiti, Krupa Drishti, Divya Drishti. Until that happens, like I'll tell you that Arundhati Vasishta observation, I cannot describe what that experience was in 2009 when finally after 15 years of phenomenal journey, hard journey, it's like, when it actually happened, Aditya ji, it was in 2 minutes. It's like, I forgot now, 2 o'clock at night, Friday, 8 May 2009. But it took 15 years. So the Guru Pratiti, Daivi Pratiti, Krupa Drishti, Divya Drishti has to happen. And that you can request it, you can ask for it, you can pray for it, but it cannot come by demand. You cannot demand it and just say instantaneously it should come. No, unless you have the qualification, it will not come. The secret of Murti Puja is what we discussed. And we also discussed many Vishwaroop Darshan and why they differ. Because they differ on your guna, your karma, your bhava, which goes back to your qualifications. So with that, I want to stop, Aditya ji, and we can stop, or if we have time, we can discuss something else.
Oh, great presentation. And I think one of the important things which is missed here. Acha, there is one interesting perspective of Bhagavad Purana also. The Shukdev Goswami calls Virat Roop for the materialistic minded.
Okay.
Shukdev Goswami in Bhagavad Purana says that Virat Roop is for the. Now it is a very advanced topic of discussion, and there is a shloka for that also. And where he says, because after Virat Roop, Arjun asked Krishna to come in the original form. And we all know that, and then he comes back and then he says, Paramam Bhavan, Purusham, Shishwa, Chachutam, Divyam, Adi Devam, Ajam Vivum. Asita Devala Vyasa, he says, all these people say this about you, and I'm just one of the person who's saying. That also shows Arjun's qualification of saying that.
Yes.
Because,
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
So there are different interpretations, and what you are saying, I'm aware of it. Even right in the 11th, the commentaries to 11th chapter of Bhagavad Gita also you see it. So
Yes,
Shukadeva Goswami in Bhagavata Purana you sees it, and there is this all even fights about it somewhat. Like so Vishwaroop Darshan, then Chaturbhuja Darshan, and then the Murari, you can say,
Murari.
with the two hands, right? And which form is the original, or which form is people's favorite, or which is the one Krishna is referring to? Or as you said, Shuka Goswami saying, and that is for materialistic people. Well, there is an element of truth in it. One has to understand the context. For example, one should wonder, excuse me. One should wonder what qualification Krishna saw in Duryodhana to show him a Vishwaroop Darshan.
That's right.
Right? Now, there his objective is different, right? In a way to sort of scare them and so on and so forth. Now take that as a one extreme. Then what Krishna showed to Yashoda is also Vishwaroop Darshan, but that is not materialistic form. Now that is the Vatsalya Bhav, and it's a very pleasant kind of experience that Krishna is want to giving to Yashoda. Now, so when Shuka Goswami, and it will be great if we can quote the verse also, but when Shuka Goswami is talking, now Bhagavata is all about the bhakti.
Yeah.
So in that bhakti bhava, why do you want, I mean, nothing wrong. For a second, it's good. So Arjun is also bhakta. So for a change, it is good to see Vishwaroop Darshan. But otherwise, what you want to perceive is something that you can interact, and all those Navavidha bhakti. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Padasevanam, Archanam, Dasyam, Sakyam. That is very difficult to do with a Vishwaroop. Right? So it is somewhat the individual person's bias. And the bias is not bad in this case. Just like Yashoda has a certain relationship with Krishna, Bhakta has a certain relationship, Arjun has a certain relationship, and Duryodhan also has a certain relationship.
I'll quote the shloka in the next. The problem is Kali Yuga memory. Something
I know.
Really here, but you just skip it. And
yes,
I don't have the reference for it, but I know where it is written. And the reason is that in the Virat Roop, Krishna says everything is in me. That's what he's showing. And so you can recognize him by looking at the trees, looking at the mountains, looking at anything you can see. And that it tells Uddhav also that it is very easy to understand me. Simply by studying a tree or a cloud, you can, the magics, everyone is after miracles.
Yes.
But a tons of water being carried by a cloud is a miracle.
Yes.
Which we take it for granted. But you have, if that water at once falls down, then there is flood.
Yes.
Cloud burst we have seen in
Himalayas. It can, it happens in Rajasthan.
Yes.
Sometimes cloud burst, and actually when it happens in Himalayas, they will wash off like the towns and all the livestock and everything, It
happened in Kedarnath a few years back. Cloud burst happened. So the point is, I'm saying is the Vishwaroop shows us that what is Vishnu, because sometimes we don't have the imagination to see who is Vishnu. And Vishwaroop shows that the powers of Vishnu, that everything is entering into his mouth. He's the Kal, and he has thousands of heads, thousands of hands, thousands of. So, but you again come back to the reality when Arjun asks him that, okay, I'm very scared now. I accept you everything. Now, please come back in the form which doesn't vichalit, mera man ko vichalit na kare. It's like that.
Yeah.
So, but the point is, I really love the conversation happening. As many times you read, you never get tired. Maybe it is the case with me and you, but generally, the more you read it, because Krishna keeps the discussions so alive. Every 3-4 discussions, topics are changing.
Correct.
And in one shloka, you can write 500 pages book. Every shloka. Because you can just start with like just a Neha Bhikramanasho Asti Pratyavaya Navidyate. Now, Neha Bhikramanasho, like 20 topics are in this one shloka. So Vedescha Sarve Rahame Vedya Vedanta Krit Vedavid Eva Chaham.
Yeah.
And Shankaracharya's comment, Bhaja Govindam, Bhaja Govindam, Bhaja Govindam, Mudamate. Now here he's saying Mudamate, the speculator.
Yes. Let me say something to you, like what you said, just adding to that. Like you can take one shlok of Bhagavad Gita and you said write a 500-page book or something. Ashwini, she has like few of her friends, they have a Bhagavad Gita, we can call it Bhagavad Gita club or Bhagavad Gita discussion group. And so some of the members that I was also talking sometime, and what I said is, I said, just as a way of adding to their group, I don't go there, I will just go once in a while. I said, now, I just said as a prediction. So I said, now that you have gone through this whole, they took 1 year and went through all Bhagavad Gita, just an open discussion, like simple discussion. I said, now that you have done it, like you have done the Swadhyaya, Abhyasa Yoga Swadhyaya, you have done it. Now you will go and sometime, I asked them, I offered them as a prediction, but I also offered them as a caution in the both ways, I said, now you'll go to some place and you might listen to some random Swamiji talking on Bhagavad Gita. And don't be surprised if you are bored to death. Right? Now, those people who don't have a perspective, they will take this as an offensive discussion, you and me, what we are saying. He says, well, Swamiji talking and bored to death. But you can feel free to say what your experience is, but that is my experience. And this is not a disrespect to anyone. Say, for example, like 30 years ago, when I was listening to, say, certain Bhagavad Gita discussion, and I found that very useful for me to understand Bhagavad Gita. But if I have to listen to that same discussion today, I find it boring to death. Now, I'm not saying that's not useful, but remember we talked about the different levels of qualifications. And so you have moved on, you have gone to another level. But Bhagavad Gita is always refreshing to me.
Always refreshing.
Okay. And then, of course, I may listen to somebody else, and doesn't have to be some famous person. Like one day, I was listening to somebody, I forgot even the name now, from Gujarat. It was a short video, like 4-minute video. And he was talking about Adhyatma, 13th chapter, Adhyatma Jnana Nityatvam Tattva Jnanartha Darshanam. And he gave a bit of a, what you can say, pravachan or commentary. And I said, my God, I know this verse by heart, but I never understood the certain angle and certain discussion that he is contributing.
That's right.
I was just fascinated. I said, I know this verse. So I think the journey will always continue. There is no end to it, but it's not unusual. I just wanted to caution them that now you go to some place, some listen to Swamiji, and it can bore you to death. And you know what they said? They were at actually my place. They said, actually, it's already happening. So, anyways, back to you.
And no, what a wonderful discussion. And also the Bhagavad Puran, Shukdev Goswami keeps it so interesting. Vaishampayan keeps Mahabharata so interesting. It's a disservice by any of us that we make it uninteresting. It's a disservice. It's seva nahi hai. Because you are moving somebody away from Bhagavad Gita.
Yes.
But if you connect them to Krishna himself in Gita and Arjun, then Bhagavad Gita becomes interesting day by day. It's the only book that talks back to you. There is no other book which talks back to you. And that is the beauty of Krishna's words, whether an American reads it or Indian reads it, an African reads it, or a black person, white. We don't believe in race theory, but black or white or European, the message is the same. There is something Upadrashta tu mantacha bhukta bharta bhukta maheshwara. Paramatma utyukto. So Paramatma within the heart guides the entire humanity. And therefore Bhagavad Gita is the only book for humanity. No other book. Every other book talks about community. And that's why it talks about communal religions.
Yeah.
Bhagavad Gita is for humanity and all the Manushya Jati.
Yes.
So with that, I'll stop here, and I'll encourage the readers or watchers who are watching this to write. And Sattology.org is a platform where you can write. It's like we're trying to build it like a repository competing on Sanatan Dharma topics to Wikipedia. So click an article on Wikipedia on Sanatan Dharma and you will definitely not like it. So you are welcome to write it on Sattology.org. And so thank you so much, Nilesh. Always a wonderful discussion. I think our hearts are always in sync.
Yes.
And the people who do not like honesty, then it's up to you. We can't do anything about you. Okay. All right. Namaste. And thank you.